On alert after numerous terrorist attacks, Americans want to know what's being done to keep them safe. Over the next half hour, we'll talk to security experts about the prevalence of ISIS and what can be done to calm some fears. Welcome to 11 TV Hill. I'm Jason Newton, and today we look at issues not only affecting the U.S., but the world, really. Terror becoming a growing threat, one that has really gripped the headlines for weeks now. Recently, the U.S. suffered one of its deadliest mass shootings in the nation's history. 14 people killed and more than 20 others hurt when a married couple opened fire at a holiday party in San Bernardino, California. The FBI saying the couple was radicalized for quite some time. President Obama addressed that violence, saying it's time for Americans to search themselves as a society to prevent future tragedies.
We see the prevalence of these kinds of mass shootings in this country. And I think so many Americans sometimes feel as if there's nothing we can do about it. We can't just leave it to our professionals to deal with the problem of these kinds of horrible killings. We all have a part to play.
But as the U.S. tries to sort out a solution, the threat of terror attacks becomes more top of mind, especially during the holiday travel season. A New York Times estimate suggesting terror group ISIS responsible for slayings of thousands of people in 2015, not including civilian deaths in both Iraq and Syria. The group has really left a path of destruction, from lives to ancient artifacts disrupted, most notably a large-scale attack in the City of Lights, Paris, darkened and locked down after a coordinated strike, the second of the year there. And unfortunately, they're not alone, with al-Qaeda claiming an attack at a Mali hotel that killed 20 there. But a swift response has been in France and neighboring Belgium. Law enforcement teams use state of emergency powers to corner suspects linked to the Paris attacks and track down those involved in that area. Still, though, as the U.S. keeps watch, disturbing new intelligence out of Iraq. Reports showing that the Islamic State aggressively looking into chemical weapons, but so far, U.S. intelligence officials don't believe ISIS has that capability to develop sophisticated weapons like nerve gas. Now, security both here at home and abroad is a conversation from Washington all the way to the campaign trail, become very opinionated debate over strategy, what will or will not work. And joined now with Mike Greenberg from the University of Maryland School of Law. Thanks for coming by. It's good to see you. Just talk to me right now. What's the discussion, do you think, in Washington when it comes to national security?
Well, I'm sure there are many levels of discussion, but I think the foremost discussion is beefing up our intelligence capabilities. As you may know, with regard to San Bernardino, there are now people in the intelligence community saying that we had some advance notice of it, but we couldn't pin it down.
Sure.
What that is causing the federal officials to look at more carefully is a coordination with state and local police, who are more likely to get information about what's happening in the community that may be something that needs to be looked at more carefully.
Sure.
After 9/11, there have been lots of coordination efforts, even here in Maryland. The federal government, the state police, the federal U.S. attorney, local police have consolidated and have operations centers where information is exchanged. I think we've gotten a little lax as to that, and I think this is a wake-up call, because something that happened in San Bernardino, for example, may have been picked up in the community itself. The local police, had it been attuned, might have picked it up. There was information that something was going to happen in Southern California. So I think right now that's our foremost defense toward heading these problems off.
Talk about getting that information and that defense, because it'll be difficult, because you have to sort of weigh between getting the surveillance but also the privacy of Americans. And that's going to be talked about throughout this. How do you make the balance?
Well, there is a big surveillance privacy issue now, and I think it's unfortunate that the head of Central Intelligence, National Security Agency, is saying, you see, we need to listen to all phone calls, we need to get all emails. That's like being inundated with information that you can't organize. What needs to be done is, if police have their ear to the ground, they will hear from communities, perhaps the Muslim community or other kinds of communities, that something is happening that needs attention. We hear all the time, see something, say something. Mostly that's identified with seeing a baggage that's left in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
But that's now being converted into, if you're starting to pick up signals within a community or even a family noticing that a family member is acting in a strange way, our law enforcement officials are going to be much more sensitive and open to that, and also going to be focusing the communities on that information.
Sure, back to San Bernardino. Just after the president made an announcement, he was saying that it's really, he called it insane, that someone can be on the no-fly list but also be able to buy guns. Marco Rubio, a presidential candidate, came out and said, well, listen, slow down. There's some Americans who may be on that list with really no tie to terrorism. What do you think about this back and forth?
Well, I think, Marco Rubio is right. Those no-fly lists are over-inclusive. But be that as it may, whether you're on the list rightly or wrongly, you shouldn't be able to walk in and get a gun just as a normal citizen. And I think the president is right in that regard. There's obviously a big debate and a big push for more gun control here. That's going to be very problematic because it is such a sensitive issue, but nevertheless, it needs to be talked about. These weapons are just too easily available to the wrong people.
Sure. I can remember flying into a foreign country as a kid and seeing that country's military along roads and on corners. As the U.S. tightens security, will the average American be able to tell? Will you be able to see that security has been tightened?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be in sort of a police state.
Yeah.
But yes, I think at public facilities, transportation facilities, airlines, trains, buses, and other public institutions where people gather, like going to a pro football game at M&T Stadium, there has been and there will be a lot more attention paid to who's coming into those facilities.
Sure. Regardless of political affiliation, everyone's saying, live your life, keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely, that's true. But we will see that our law enforcement officials are going to, both in terms of collecting intelligence and providing safety at public places, it will be stepped up.
Okay.
The final thing I would just say about that is a lot of, for example, in Paris, it was a theater that got overwhelmed. I think that private institutions have to be more aware of setting up security systems about who comes into a facility.
Sure.
We have architects that we use to make sure a building doesn't collapse. I think what is the next thing is we have to have security measures to make sure that people with weapons do not come into public facilities.